Welcome to Fighters Drinking Coffee with Michael Sutherland and Scott. And so we're going to talk about the origins of Fighters Drinking Coffee today. So we started recording initially. This is, for those of you who aren't in the know, this is the second iteration of Fighters Drinking Coffee. So Scott and I started all the way back in 2015, right? Yeah, that was the first episode. We were sitting at a table, actually at a table much like this one.
That's right.
Wasn't
it the poker table or was that the second one?
That was the second, that was
when we made some improvements to the studio.
When we moved out of my condo. So we were using the condo to start, right? So first we were recording at the coffee table. I believe the first episode might have been the Diamond Dallas Page one.
I thought it was Matt.
Oh, you know what? So it was actually if it was Matt, that would have been,
the first episode.
I think we did one around with Kamal, around like my dining room table, if you call it dining room, around the table in my condo. We ate some eggs and sausages. It was like right after, it was the only furniture in my whole condo too. It was just that table. But so that was where it all started, just sitting there. We just like recording around there. We just started like bringing people in. We would sit around the couch with the coffee table. We still have the coffee table. That'll probably end up down here.
Like that.
Bringing it all together in our Western studio.
Cowboy.
Yeah. Surrounded by animal effigies and cowboys.
Bear skins. What is this?
This is an elk.
Okay.
This is an elk skin rug. So I figured this is a little softer. Feels good on the feet. But yeah, so we started out recording back in 2015. And yes, like, there are a few reasons, but like, what
I think we were fired up and thought it'd be fun. To put it bluntly.
It was like kind of
rough around the edges.
It was early in the
podcast game. It was Wild West of podcast.
Yeah, it was before it really became like a big thing. It was just starting to become a big thing, maybe. And yeah, I mean, we were like, we can do this. We can talk. And actually, we started out, we were doing it, dude. We probably took for granted how
the numbers
successful it was.
Crazier than more than we deserved.
Yeah. Like, the amount of effort and professionalism was not,
was pretty low.
Was not deserving.
I don't know if
effort was there.
Effort was there. The organization, the thought process, and maybe instead of effort, maybe concentration.
Yeah, that might be the better
concentration.
Way to put it. That might be the better
way to say it. But yeah, dude, it was a fun project. You know, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. We were like, we're gonna fire off some episodes and talk about God knows. We talked about so many things.
There were definitely things that we probably had no business talking about. We weren't quite as expert.
We weren't qualified to weigh in on things, but you know, it was no one was at the time.
Yeah, and we did a lot of stuff too. Like it was kind of, you could think of it as like the testing ground for what we're doing today. We were doing like fight card picks, some like analysis of that kind of stuff. We also tried out, we were doing all kinds of different people in our interviews.
We had a lot of guests.
A lot that we hope to have back too. We're just kind of in the process of working on that. There's quite a few actually very interesting people, especially in martial arts scene, actually the national and international martial arts scene, which is pretty cool. That's a broader spectrum than what we've done so far. And just some people locally that have played a good part in the martial arts scene here in Virginia.
We had like we had a lot of coffee people on.
We did have a lot of coffee.
We were just going in whatever direction sounded interesting at the time, which is okay. We can still do that.
But we reached out to a bunch of people.
We like cold outreach some folks who ended up sponsoring us, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, like we were pretty grassroots with like the Butcher Box, which is huge.
Right when they launched.
Yeah.
They are huge.
We interviewed them right at the beginning. It'd actually be cool to get him back on, just like, that'd be, because we put those episodes to get next to each other, right? Like, maybe let you guys hear where they were and where they are now. We also have some. We had a bunch of local coffee people. One of which I know where they are. They're still producing and pretty well respected in the coffee scene locally too. Um, and and sneak them off. And we also had the guys who founded Super Coffee. Super Coffee. That was
Now called
that was
Super
what
Coffee. Suniva at the time when they first found them. Those bros went on Shark Tank. They ended up being very successful.
Yeah, they and you actually so Super Coffee is still in grocery stores. And yeah, I saw them the other day. I was like, well, shit, man. Like that's. I remember these guys. Yeah, I mean, it was just the timing. There was a lot of cool stuff happening.
Jimmy the Kecker, we're buddy, launched Super Coffee.
There you go. Shout out to Jimmy.
Yeah, and the boys, and that was those were wild times.
Yeah,
we're just kind of reaching across whatever outlets we had to just meet people and bring them on the show. It wasn't a lot of thinking about it. It was like, you'll do, get on that. I mean, it was cool.
It was cool. We got a lot of cool. We met a lot of cool people. We got some really cool. We got some kickbacks out of it too. So
yeah, it was good. We were making a lot of
nice.
money, which is insane for how rough around the edges we were. And you mentioned this earlier that dude, we have a lot of listeners. We're on like 12,000 a month.
Yeah, we were getting about 12,000 hits a month for a while there, and and I don't know. I could not tell you when that started within like that journey.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I want to say that was like probably towards like it maybe took us a year.
Yeah,
to get
that's about right. Because that wasn't immediate, but like it's pretty cool because like we weren't really paying attention to the growth trends until that was like the first. That's the first metric we have written down.
Yeah.
So I don't really know like when that happened.
Well, yeah. Again, go call back to us not being super organized.
Yeah, not really.
I just remember looking at the stats and saying, "Huh? Hey, dude, have you seen this?
Yeah.
Why aren't so many people listening to us?"
So yeah, I mean, a lot of people were listening to our bullshit at that time. But I mean, I think the biggest thing was we went back when we were coming to start this iteration of it. So I think sometime last year, I think you reached out, about when we started talking about trying to get this thing.
Yeah.
And, we going into, we're like, well, we need to decide what our goal and what the identity is. Cause we recognize like how all over the place it was before and that maybe we should redefine the reasoning.
The mission statement.
Yeah.
Have a bit more of structure and direction, like you said, so that we could be a bit more consistent and prepared and organized and felt like a better, if you were thinking, a better product for people.
Yeah, and so we kind of listened back to some of the older episodes. We also had to scrub the internet of all the various versions of the feed. So that was kind of fun.
They're floating around.
There's still some like random.
They're lurking in the
sites
depths of the internet.
that are still somehow grabbing one of the feeds. There's like random episodes. There's even some of like the offshoots from like when Charles was like the fighter and the lover or whatever.
Lover and the fighter.
Lover and the fighter. Yeah. That's who it was. Yeah. So there's like a bunch of those just kind of floating around the internet, bro. But and so that was fun. But I listened back to some of them, and like I think where we did land was that kind of we added our discussion of our experience in jiu-jitsu because that wasn't quite as much of a part of it.
Well, because we didn't really have these.
No, we were still very.
That's probably the best thing to call out. It was, and you mentioned this a minute ago, where we were talking a lot, but we didn't really have a lot of experience at the time.
Yeah,
we were not that we were incapable of speaking on the subject, but we just, we were like, very purple and brown most of the time. We're just kind of like, we were callow youth.
Yeah, we
were having fun.
Did more than we did, I guess.
We said a lot of shit. We were talking a lot of shit, which was funny. But yes, I mean, like, even just like if you think about some of the episodes we've done so far, which when you and I met 6 months ago or something like that. 6-7 months ago. Might have been more than that. Hey, you've been recording.
We started recording
6 months now.
I think when we started recording,
It's January.
we started recording end of last.
Okay, December.
Hi, Ellie. Hi.
What's up?
Bring it over here, girl. So we started recording end of last year, and then we launched in
March. Yeah. Well, the point being, probably like 6 to 8 months back, we were like, all right, like, as you said, what do we want to do with the show? Where do we want to position ourselves? Where do we want to do a little bit differently? And I think, honestly, like, amongst other things, because part of the fun about the first go at Fighters Drinking Coffee, that I personally, speaking for myself, I don't want to lose. This will let it happen organically. Is the ability to go in interesting directions when it makes sense. We have someone cool to talk to about a subject that we're still either interested in or know a little bit about. Doesn't always have to be teaching martial arts. But that being said, that has been because you and I both now have built up actual troves of wisdom and knowledge and you can help people with a bit more experience. And so I think, the last like 12 to 13 episodes of this podcast, we've had some guests on, but a lot of it has been just like informative, like some perspectives that we formed around martial arts that perhaps is like the nucleus of what we're doing. And then there'll be like derivative things that come from that or associated with it in business and some other stuff I have another company with. You have done a lot of interesting things too. So we know cool people in other realms of, just another realms. Yeah, it might be fun to talk to, but I think we'll always have a home base on what our core passions are.
Yeah, like the martial arts is the kind of like the glue of it all. And then like we have, kind of like the way I've been thinking of what we've been getting is we've already interviewed a bunch of people from a bunch of that have things outside of their martial arts career. And there's a lot of like common things, even with different experiences that these people have. But like the human experience, that exists, like all of these different things that both impact the martial arts, but also how the martial arts impacts the other things they do.
Personal thought.
Yeah. And so like the way that everything kind of forms together. Yeah. So like that creates a really cool, there's a really cool
potential
thing
to that, right?
Yeah.
Like there's potential to have different conversations that can tie back to something that unifies everything we're doing, but has has an avenue or two or three or something that tells an interesting story about that person that we're talking to. Yeah, that like it could be. I don't want to spoil it. We have a couple guests coming up in the next like month or so, who are some of them are like career martial artists, some of them are martial artists who have careers or other things, and either or will be able to talk about how that martial arts experience guides them or has aided them in whatever it is they're doing. It's not always like talking about back tapes and their shows.
Yeah.
Although, and a lot of times it will be, but
when they all have different reasons, like everyone has a different reason that they started doing martial arts too. And even some of these competitors, they didn't start doing, in the majority of the cases so far, either MMA or jiu-jitsu, they didn't necessarily start doing it with the intent of competing or fighting, right? Like everyone had a different thing that drew them into the sport. And that's also there's always a really cool story tied to it because, not everybody was like, oh, I want to go. In my case, it was like, hey, I want to go and do MMA. That's what drew me into this. But not everybody had that. Like some people, it was some, thing. Some people it's health. Some people it's a mental thing. Like they are trying to overcome something or they had an experience that wanted them to be able to better defend themselves. And there's a lot of different things that drew people into the sport. And I think that's a really cool part of jujitsu. And I think that's something that, when you start sharing that with other people, thank you, Eloise. When you start sharing that with people, you can learn a lot about the sport, different people. And I was talking to someone the other day about how interesting it is, like the different backgrounds. And so I think being able to share that with our listeners that's a fun thing for everybody, right? Like that's an interesting topic. And, I think we saw that too. I think that was one of the big things that drew people in the first place, in the first round of this. And we didn't necessarily notice it.
Right.
Or I wasn't picking up on it then, that like, oh, human experience is bringing a lot of people in. I don't think I quite noticed that the first time around, or didn't appreciate that the first time around, quite as much as I do now.
Right. Got it. Yeah, no, I think there's to your point, an interesting theme that we've spoken about in recent episodes too. I want to say it's come up talking to Dallas or other dudes about like growing a martial arts team or a gym, which I think resonates or aligns with what you were just saying, which is that, and I'm imagining it's probably mostly true from listening to the show as well. And with your experience, kind of too, where most of the people who come in aren't there because they're going to be a competitor. Essentially, not that they couldn't be, but that's not like the first thing they think of when they walk in. I guess this is my way of saying, like, not everyone on the mat. These are my gym. Most gyms are not all like fighters and folks. But they want to, maybe want to test themselves and do that, which is awesome. But to your point, well, I guess the point I think I'm trying to make in one of yours is that people who are training they have all different types of motivations and personalities, and like that is what's cool. Yeah, most people listen here are like full-time seasoned competitors. Some of them might be.
I would venture that the majority probably aren't.
Regular folks.
I could be proven wrong.
Yeah, well, there's definitely going to be a little bit of both.
That's not a statistic that's not a metric that we're given as the number of full-time competitors.
One day we'll have that type of data. But whatever. The point is that a lot of folks, whether they're competing, whether like fully dedicated and committed to becoming a champion, or someone who's just training for personal development, a skill, trying to stay in shape, meeting friends in the community, regular folks all the way up to like world champions all have that reverence and appreciation for training the martial art. Even if they're in life, they're doing different things. There's like a consistent thread. We're interested in talking to all of these types.
Oh yeah.
That's who listens. That's kind of like, me and you steered our lives towards competing and going down that path. But, and so that, we have something in common with those types of guys who are pushing for that. But we're regular people too. You're doing different things. I'm doing different things as well. And, there's that connection that a dude or a lady who just wants to come in and learn some self-defense. Maybe they're doing something cool too. Maybe they can come up with it.
Yeah. I mean, usually there's something about, right? Everyone's got something interesting or cool about them. And yeah, like even the people who are full-time competitors, there's something more to that person too. And I think that's an interesting part of it as well. Like they're not just a competitor. So, being able to, there's people they have families, they have other interests, they have hobbies, like, just on a friend of ours podcast, Strong AF Club, they were talking about how many competitors also do things like board games and
they're gamers.
Card games.
Yeah, they're gamers.
Magic the Gathering. Yeah. Like, there's other things, like, they have other hobbies outside of it, because, like, most people think of, like, oh, well, like, jujitsu, that's a hobby. But then there's people who do this as a career, and they still have hobbies, like, and so, like, exposing that too. A lot of people play a lot of
people play Warzone. I don't even know what some of these video games are. Noah asked me recently, Noah and Asim are like trying to here crushing you. It's playing video games again, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I can do that.
It'll
draw me in.
You'll become unproductive. And
I'll never
else.
leave my house.
I think we've talked about that before.
It sounds awesome. It sounds awesome. I admire their ability to do two things very well, but live a normal life. Yeah, dude, like you said, like there's other interesting aspects. Like I was talking to Noah yesterday when we traded. He's talking about paying break. He's like, I think he's really good at it.
I mean, he's young. He's still got like,
he's competitive, and like I think he's like sick at Call of Duty, whatever the hell it is. For probably more than one thing. I don't know. He's good at that stuff. But anyways, like, imagine talking about that.
And he was a Division I wrestler.
That's right.
And like,
that's right.
Still,
savage.
Still a very like
he's an athlete.
high level athlete,
he's an athlete,
right?
Yeah.
So like, it's kind of like that's a cool aspect people don't normally think about too. Like, that's not a stereotype of.
Was it Mighty Mouse?
Oh,
like
Mighty Mouse,
like Xbox player or something.
He would play Xbox.
He had more money
for
for
the
Xbox.
fight.
Yeah.
He was sponsored by Xbox.
He made a bunch of money. I think
And then
back
he
when like it was
would-
tough for the 125 division guys to get paid a lot of money.
When he would finish the fights and immediately go back to his hotel room and play Xbox. So, yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of guys that do. Like, I think there are some, but outside of that, there's not like been a lot of people who are like super vocal about it. So, I think it's not a appreciated part of the hobby necessarily. Yeah. There is more, and I think that's the gist of what we're getting to, is there's a lot more to a lot of these guys. I'm older than you, girl. There's a lot more to a lot of these guys than what people always see.
Blood and butts and
this and ups, and a lot of people see the violence in the sport, but they don't necessarily see like the rest of these people. And I think it's cool to bring this stories. And I think that stuff interests me too. So I like talking to these people and hearing it firsthand.
Yeah.
Which is a big part of this too. We're trying to have some fun with it too. It's not all business. But I think people gain value from that. And I think it also makes the sport a little less intimidating to the normal people.
Right. Yeah, you get to see the 360-degree view of the human beings. That's what we're all about here at Fight Sugar Coffee.
Yeah.
360-degree views of human beings. Like you, Mike.
Like you, Mike. Sitting here doing dad stuff, recording podcasts when working hard, man. Well, and this is at least the next year of my life. Just doing dad stuff, recording podcasts, trying to bring a top level product to you guys. And hopefully this will be top level too. I can pixel that in me. I'm sure I will.
Keeping things interesting.
Yeah.
Keeping things interesting.
Yeah, but we wanted to make sure that we brought kind of the origin to this, and like what brought us together was the sport of jiu-jitsu initially. And we knew we vibed pretty well too. So that helped. We were nice.
She's one of my biggest fans.
Nice dynamic duo of Nova MMA.
Nova MMA, which was, by the way, where we recorded a lot of episodes. Once we got our first couple reps in over at your place, we switched over to Nova MMA. We've talked about this before on the show. We train like in the morning, hit like a lift or something, sometimes some training, and then we shower, run into the little back room they had, and we had like a card table set up. Yeah, so the Himalayan salt lamps. It was actually a nice little
very sweet setup. We had the Bob dummy in there too. So we had Bob dummy hanging out with us. We had like we had a little hot plate, and we would make pour over coffees for ourselves. I mean, we had like it was like a little homeless encampment in there.
It was.
But yeah, we had that all set up at the card table. We had a nice rug.
We had guests coming in.
Yeah, we had people
like 7 in the morning.
Yeah, we had people coming in and recording with us. Cho was super cool about it.
She was
nice.
She was.
And yeah, I mean, it was also the sound in that room. I've been listening back to some of the unedited cuts of it. So the sound in that room was pretty impressive.
Considering the circumstances.
Like, I think part of it was probably that it was, the building was those Blackwater, like
Yeah.
it used to be like the
Mercenaries.
mercenary like depot, and like we found like old requisition lists and stuff in there. And so the whole thing was like a skiff. It's like those walls are pretty dense. So it definitely
That's right.
probably helped with the sound dampening of those rooms.
Shout out to the military industrial complex in Northern Virginia.
Yeah, creating good sound rooms for fighters drinking coffee.
Yeah, we'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so it was a pretty humble start from like recording in the empty condo that I had just moved into, we started expanding. We started recording at Nova. We did some recording I think we did some at your apartment.
We did.
But it was pretty cool. We started getting people in. We had some cool guests. Like we had people that fought in like team MMA fights in Russia. We had the King of Connecticut, Matt Granahan, multiple times.
Hey.
And I mean, we did all kinds of stuff. We had a cool, we did something for Diamond Dallas Page. We did like an review episode for him of like his yoga program. Was it
DDP Yoga?
DDP Yoga. We had all these cool things, and I'm pretty excited to get all of that back too. I think that'll be pretty cool. It's like, I want to get a lot of those guys back on the show. In fact, there's some that I'm going to reach out to. But there's a lot of people that I want to also try to get back.
Re-engage with some of the old folks.
Yeah, and I think it'd be cool. Like I mentioned it earlier in the episode, but I think it'd be cool to get like do the double release. Like,
how my son.
Here's what they were talking about back in 2015, 2016, and like here's where they are now. Fighters drinking coffee. Guess where are they now?
The before times.
So I think that'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
Rock and roll, man.
Anything else you want to?
No, man. That was where we were. This is where we are now.
Well, as always, guys, thank you for listening to Fighters Drinking Coffee. Like, subscribe, follow. You can get us at Fighters Drinking Coffee on Instagram. That's where most of that is our social media. And you can find us from there. If you really want to dig deep, you can find our personals on that one too.
Yeah, follow us on Spotify.
Definitely subscribe on Spotify. The downloads are good. Also, the reviews. I like seeing you guys going and reviewing. I see it tick up every once in a while. And
those reviews,
Discord. The Discord. I'll put all that in the show notes. You'll be able to find us everywhere. If you find us, like, subscribe. Reviews are big. Reviews get us moved up on the algorithm, so we get in front of more people that see us, more people that listen, which means community that is surrounding Fighters Drinking Coffee is bigger. And that's a big part of what this is. So keep listening, and we'll have some cool new stuff for you guys in the near future as well. Thank you. Bye.